I always want to leave the people that I'm talking to, as far as anybody, but as far as business and wedding pros, better than when I started with them. Maybe it's just a piece, maybe it's the little put your the parent tab on your website, but give them something.
Yeah.
So if we can get wedding pros, and many of them do this, do the same thing in sharing information, educating the couple, even if they don't ever email you back, even if they don't book you, it's about education, so that you are leaving them better than when they somewhere found you along the way.
Welcome to The Right Fit. Today, we are joined by Tom, the Director of Vendor Engagement for WeddingPro, the powerhouse behind the Knot and WeddingWire. With a long journey in sales, advertising, and marketing, he has a passion for helping pros move from no plan, survival mode, to an automatic business life. I want to get right into it. Tom, you've seen thousands of businesses succeed and fail. So what is the uncomfortable truth we're facing now in this shift to Gen Z that wedding professionals are most afraid of?
Boy, there's so much. First off, thank you so much for having me. There's so much into that. I think I need to back up a little bit.
Let's do it.
Let's back up a little bit. In 2024, I called it the perfect storm for weddings. Three things happened in 2024 as far as weddings are concerned. Number one, we went back to 2 million weddings, literally reset ourselves from the same number of weddings that should be taking place as in 2018. So we had all that pent up demand after COVID. And in 2024, we went back to 2 million weddings. Wedding pros out there felt less leads, because there were less leads, less bookings because there were less weddings taking place. But on top of that, more competition than ever, because there are more DJs, there's more planners, there's more venues, there's all this pent up demand coming off of COVID of 2.5, 2.3 million weddings. So that's number one. That started happening in 2024. The other thing in 2024 was the economy, for the first time in the world of weddings, was a concern to couples. They have done a very long 16, 17 years, a real wedding study. And all those years before, the economy never really came up. But even back in, I know I'm old, you're young, but back in 2008, when the recession was happening, the economy wasn't good back then either, but it never came up in our study. But the economy came up. Now, it doesn't mean that in 2024, people started, stop having weddings and everything's changed. No, they were just concerned about the economy. The big shift in 2024, as you sort of pre-mentioned, was Gen Z. Gen Z started becoming part of the wedding industry, part of who the couples were. So anytime there's a generational shift, business, no matter what business you're in, you could be a plumber or a attorney or a DJ or a planner, you have to shift your business. But it's not a switch that flips overnight, because your couple or your client base doesn't all of a sudden shift overnight.
Right.
So in 2025, where were we? The exact same place, 2 million weddings. The economy is still a problem, and Gen Z becomes even more important. In 2026, where are we? Still 2 million weddings. Gen Z is 41% of today's weddings taking place, and the economy is still a concern. The pros that I have seen that have done well since 2024 and killing it as we move into 2026 and bookings into 2027 has started to shift their business back in 2024 to connect. What did they start shifting? Even things like fonts on your website, colors, the look and feel of your social media.
Yeah.
Even at the Knot back then, we did a major brand overhaul on our site. The Knot logo, the font changed, the color changed, because that's what was resonating with this generation. As time goes by, 2024, then 2025, then we're starting to shift our package, shifting packages, pricing, how they're responding, when they're responding, and into 2026. So there's still plenty of weddings happening. Well, 2 million weddings. Take a guess on how many billions of dollars the wedding industry is worth in the US.
5 billion.
100 billion.
What? That's
$100 billion. So all of you smart wedding pros out there, you're in the right business, right? You're in the right business. There's still plenty of money, but the difference is the generational shift. They're still getting married. Gen Z guest count is a little higher than millennials. They're averaging about 131 guests. On a national average, it's about 117 guests. So there's just a shift,
That's
and those that
interesting.
have been along long enough, there's a shift into millennials too. But we all have to shift.
Always shifting, always evolving. I'm sure you've seen a lot of evolution, not just with your background and your experience, but with technology and all these things going on. But so one thing you mentioned, with the economy and these, let's call it Gen Zs now planning their weddings, I hear from some Gen Zs that I've spoken to that, things are a little different from them. The cost of the house is not the same and the cost of this is not the same, and they're coming out with student loans and these disadvantages. So I'm sure all this is something that is top of mind when they're planning their wedding. But you mentioned something that stood out to me as far as like the guest count being a little higher, which I find would be a little counter to that, because I guess to save money you would want to invite less guests, but they're inviting more than before.
A little more. And the interesting thing with that is my opinion and the facts from our real wedding study. This generation has their parents and relative paying for more of their wedding. And that's just because they're younger. They're not as established.
Right.
And when from the father of the bride who paid for my daughter's wedding, if I'm paying for that wedding, I'm going to invite more of my friends. You know what I mean? Like, so there is certainly that, probably that reason too, right? But the most important thing, when we ask the question, this is interesting. When we ask the question, Gen Z and millennials in general, I could actually probably pull up a form and show the difference between Gen Z and millennial. But then on a national average, we ask the question, if you could describe your wedding in one word, what would that word be? And for wedding pros out there, when you're doing a consultation, I think that's a fantastic needs analysis questions to ask. Right? What word would you describe your reception as? The word that came back was fun, which makes sense. It's been last year, it switched to romantic nationally and it's back to fun. Fun and romantic are always pretty close. But with this generation, you have to dig into that word, because fun means to me a rager, because I'm showing my age. I want booze. I want good food. I want dancing on the tables. I want a rager. But the word fun means different to everybody. But Gen Z, a really great wedding planner friend of mine, Renee Dallow out in LA, she's genius. And she shared the story when she asked, well, when she asked that and said fun, what does fun mean to you? This particular couple, fun was a bookstore wedding. They wanted a DJ, but the DJ was just for vibes. They wanted little vignettes of bookshelves and chairs and people to read books. They wanted little gaming setups like Scrabble setup. And of course oh, we can do that, et cetera. It ended up being a 200 and some $1,000 wedding.
Wow.
If she would have went down the path of what fun means to her, which was the same as me, she would have lost that opportunity. So that's my takeaway with that. That's my takeaway. I do have one other thing real quick to say.
Yeah.
If we know that the majority of the wedding is being paid for by parents and relatives, where I see wedding pros being successful is you have to connect who your audience is. And yes, it's the couple, but if the parents are paying for it, why not have a little tab on your website that says for parents and relatives? Because what's happening, right? Like, my daughter finds I'm going to pick on DJs, please. You're the DJ, but and so much more, but I'm going to pick on DJs, but it could be anything, venue, whatever, that say, hey, dad, check out this DJ. And if there's a tab for me specifically that has FAQs, questions, answers, written for me as a parent or relative, you are connecting with me where I am on my personal journey in this overall production. I'm seeing enough success of wedding pros out there that I'm now trying to share that across the board. And should
That's
be on your
genius.
social media too. Should be everywhere.
Yeah. I've posted things maybe on social media there are maybe parent dance related, and you see parents light up in maybe engagement or the comments, or now they're envisioning themselves at this wedding, right? Because it's an emotional day, right? So where's the emotional attachment there? You're giving them a little tip or value, and I think that's genius, the whole put it on your website type of thing. And I don't know if you've seen this. I know this is a little further along in the sales process, but I've even offered to connect with parents if it makes sense. Like, hey, I want to connect with the couples, but if your parents are going to be involved with in this, I don't mind jumping on a call with them either. And I've found some success in that. I know it's a little bit more work, but sometimes, that's what sales is. You got to put in the effort with that. Have you seen any of that as far as the consult?
absolutely. But what I suggest and what I've seen, I just did a training on sales consultations with a wedding pro yesterday. Consistently do that. But before you get to the sales consultation, ask them who else is part of this decision making process, or should they be on the call with us?
Yes,
It moves things along
for sure.
rather than you're talking to the couple and what do they say? Well, I got to check with my parents or I have to check with somebody else. And
Right,
they might still say that at the end,
right.
but give them the opportunity and prompt them to get everybody on the call that is important to be on the call to make that decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It's almost like, you go to buy a car and you're like, I got to check in with my wife, type of thing. And I see that with the parents, although I don't know if you've heard of any of this feedback. I've had calls with everybody involved, the parents and the couples, and then this divide somewhat happens because you have obviously these two different angles, or like you said, your version of fun versus their version of fun, and then I become almost like a mediator versus like a consultant in that aspect. But I do agree that
And that's okay if that happens, right? Like your job is to take the stress away. Your job is to be the leader of what you're going to be offering. And when you show that, you can round that together, put that all in a box with a bow on it. You're
yeah.
more likely to grab that deal, grab that account.
Yeah, for sure. Have you, in your experience, obviously all that you've done, you took a step back and you were the father of the bride. Did you learn anything different from like that process, or was it like, oh, okay, I have an experience in all this, so it was like smooth
But,
sailing?
yes, I've worked at the Knot forever, and yes, I'm involved in the wedding business, but I am not a wedding planner. I am not a DJ. I ran venues for a few years, so I understand that side of the business a bit more. My step back was everything was more expensive than what I thought it was. And some of the ideas that she had or we had as parents, just were out of the price range. You know what I mean? That wasn't realistic expectation. And, granted, here I am, I'm flying photographers in from Dallas and I'm flying, all these because they're friends, you know what I mean? I'm like, I look back at that. I think, why did I do all that? But I had sticker shock and people had to educate me. One of my big things of course, we hired a planner who was wonderful. But we hired a planner after we picked a venue. I don't know why we did that. And so many people do that. Like, I don't know how we continue change the mindset. Hire your planner before you're looking for a venue.
Yeah.
Let the planner help you. And quite frankly, I didn't want to be schlepped around to all 7 venues. You know what I mean? Like, let the planner narrow it down to 2 and take me. But anyway, this is silly, I know, but linens. I had no clue how much linens were.
Yeah.
And I walked into the venue as they were setting up to the venue because the get ready room where my daughter was getting ready was at the venue. And I said to the planner, because I was upset because linens were like $2,300, right? And I said, those are the wrong linens. And she goes, those are the house linens, Tom. I said, house linens? Nobody told me they were house linens. I just spent 20 I was Dadzilla, right? Like this poor planner, right? She laughs about it now. And she says, they're ugly. She said, they're ugly. Go walk away. It's true. I mean, the linens made a big difference. They were probably worth the $2,300, but little things like that. I was at Wedding MBA speaking a couple of years ago, and my daughter's planner was sitting in the front row, and I thought, oh, I got to say it. And here's Katie, my daughter's planner, and she knows that I was Dadzilla. There's probably not many Dadzillas out there, but I was Dadzilla a little bit. So,
A little bit. Oh, well, at least you can reflect and,
yeah,
and
but
be honest.
I appreciate, and my daughter, because she was younger when she got married, education. I know wedding pros have to educate their couples, right? It's imperative, but firsthand knowledge, she had no clue. I didn't have a lot of clues. I thought, I could afford, the parties that the Knot puts on. You know what I mean? Like I could do all this. That's not realistic. I don't have that type of budget. But
Yeah.
I know that I also am doing my best to live in a world to be kind and to educate. And I always want to leave the people that I'm talking to, as far as anybody, but as far as business and wedding pros, better than when I started with them. Maybe it's just a piece. Maybe it's the little put your parent tab on your website, but give them something.
Yeah.
So if we can get wedding pros, and many of them do this, do the same thing in sharing information, educating the couple, even if they don't ever email you back, even if they don't book you, it's about education. So that so that you are leaving them better than when they somewhere found you along the way. So that's my little crusade that I've been on.
No, I
Hopefully
love it.
that'll pay off someday in heaven. Who knows?
That was a big gem. I mean, I think adding that tab, that one thing, that one takeaway, kindness and value to others, almost like that mindset of how can I serve others? And I think that's amazing. But it also made me think of something you said as far as the educational side of things when you're educating potential couples, their parents, and things that we've just been talking about now. It's so important, right? Because they don't know what they don't know, but at the same time we're dealing with a over education point of our lives where there's like social media and things and people go down all these rabbit holes, and then obviously, you know, people can send emails and nurture emails as far as like more educational stuff. So is there a happy medium? Is there such a thing as that? Or how are you making sure that these nuggets are kind of clear and concise and getting to these couples and parents in the right way?
Okay. So I have the privilege of the job that I have to be able to talk to lots of wedding pros across the country in every single category, not only in groups, small groups, large groups, whatever, but a ton of one-on-ones. You know, sit on some advisory boards across the country too. The job, I want everybody to take a step back. The job of when you get an inquiry or a lead, no matter where it comes from, I want you all to think that the goal of that inquiry is not to book it. How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. The goal of that inquiry is just to get a two-way conversation going, right? So how do you get a two-way conversation going? You have to, with this generation, all generations, you have to build trust, you have to build rapport, and you have to be helpful. So in your, emails, there's little tips like many of our couples love to use this spreadsheets for their must-have photo shoots. Here it is. Many of our couples have used this spreadsheet for a must play songs and must not play songs. Here's the tip. You want people on the dance floor? When you're doing your seating chart, put the people that like to dance next to the dance floor. That's so normal to all of you. It wasn't normal to me. I'm not a wedding professional like you guys are. When you have a sequence of, in the course of 30 days and you're sending out 7 emails and you're calling and texting at least 4 times in those 30 days, right? And you're giving a tip or trick at least, or something helpful, at least for those emails, or maybe it's a phone call or a message or a text. That's how you build that trust and rapport and gain that two-way conversation. Is it too much? You paid for that lead no matter where it comes from. And that is the way that you are connecting and building trust and rapport. I also think you should be doing that in your blogs. I think you should be doing that in your social media, because they're looking for you. Our studies show that they're looking for a wedding pro before they even send you a lead in 4 different places at minimum. So they're looking at your digital footprint. Is it all, do you have a brand identity problem? Is your brand equal in all places? I just talked to a photographer 6 weeks ago who his leads went way down. Website was beautiful, professional, exactly who he is. His Instagram looked like a circus. It was still beautiful, but it looked like a circus. So there was a brand identity problem where the couples are looking at his Instagram, falling in love with him, and then go to his website, it looks like a totally different company, right? So my point of this is education. There's never too much education, but remember, when you're educating, it's to build trust and rapport and to get that inquiry, and then to get that inquiry to actually hit reply. I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry.
No, this is great. I want you to talk a lot because at the same time, this is something like how you were saying for a DJ, for a wedding pro, some of the things are quote unquote the obvious, but you're speaking to potential, event professionals, wedding professionals who this is not second nature. I find, or have found, that most wedding pros are creatives that one day said, I'm going to start my own business. And then they're just like, now what, right? They're just kind of figuring it out as they go, marketing, sales. You know how many people I've heard say, I hate sales? I'm sure you heard the same thing, right? So it's like these things that you're saying, I think, are very valuable to our audience because it's a necessary thing. It's a part of our business, but also those reminders because it's like everybody knows what they need to do to lose weight. Do they do it? You know,
Apparently not.
yeah,
No,
no, no.
you're
But
you're exactly right. And it's okay to you have to identify what you do well. Why is a CEO successful in the world? A CEO is successful because they hire people that they're not experts in. They find the way. And it's impossible for you to educate yourself on absolutely everything that needs to be done as a wedding professional, and you do it well. You gotta educate yourself, figure out where your wheelhouse is and what you do well, and then find people to help you do other things. There's a good book. I'm going to pitch it. I get no commissions on this. Not how. I don't know if Christian, you've ever read this book. It is a fantastic book. Before I'm sitting on an advisory board or something, I suggest that they read this book. And it's more than just what the cover says. You know, the cover says hire your who's, right? But it's a fantastic, easy book. It's $8 on Audible. Read that book. That'll change the way that you are doing business. Yes, they're creatives. You know, they've never run a business before, but there's so much free education just on WeddingPro alone out there in our blogs and our webinars and everything that we do. And there's so many networking associations. I'm in South Florida. I can probably go to 7 of them every single month if I want, 7 different ones, every single month I want to. Take responsibility for yourself.
that's I mean, I think I know I've been guilty of that. You know, sometimes, you know, we cry about things and it's a, you know, kind of don't cry about something if you didn't do the work behind it, right? So I think that's a part of what we're talking about. And I know that from an educational standpoint, you know, you've been in, you know, keynote positions where you're talking to hundreds, maybe even thousands. But you also did mention this one-on-one type of, you know, consulting that you do sometimes. And it made me think about like our conversation that we're just having now. So is that something that you do bring up, like saying like, hey, it's okay to start delegating and start, you know, getting other people on your team? Because I feel like I just talked to a planner not that long ago. It was so hard for her just to get like a virtual assistant. And she said she'd been looking for over a year. And part of the obstacle, or a big part of the obstacle, was herself. You know, it wasn't like there wasn't people out there. It was just her
And
being,
there's a financial obstacle
yeah,
too. It's interesting as businesses scale too. There's not quite enough money coming in to bring somebody in. So you don't do it. So you're working so friggin' hard and doing so much more than you really need to. And you're doing the work and not working on your business. Instead, you're
in,
working on your business, right? You're working in your business instead of
yeah,
on your business.
right.
There's that level of like, when do you pull the plug? When do you actually hire somebody? But you have to. If you're going to scale, you're going to have to. Because I challenge wedding pros all the time this: what is your exit plan? What is your exit plan? Right? Like, no matter what industry you're in, you eventually age out of it
Yeah,
also. You
yeah,
age out of everything. We age out of life. You know, you age out. So what is your exit plan? I do not like when a photographer, a videographer, planner, whatever, I'm done and they just shut their business. You built this business for 20 some years. There's something to sell there,
yeah,
right? And it's got to be more than your name. It's the processes, procedures, the reputation that you built, everything you've done around that. And part of that is the employees that you have that are helping that business. And an employee that's helped grow your business is the logical person to take over your business someday too.
yeah. No, that's great. And I honestly, a very successful entertainment company that I know of, I mean, we're, you know, talking a multi-million-dollar operation, they purchased it from somebody else years ago and redid some things and refreshed it, so to speak. But they worked off of that core foundation and were able to move on. I think even from the opposite end, thinking as an entrepreneur, sometimes you don't need to start your own thing, right? I know some successful businesses that purchased another one, and that's how they got their head start and are way ahead of the game.
I know it's funny you said that. There's a DJ down here in South Florida that I've known for 18 years. And last January, he sold his business for $1.2 million.
Yeah,
And think what he's selling, right? Like he's not selling many future events. He's not selling repeat customers. He sold his business name, his reputation, his policies and procedures. That's what he
absolutely.
sold. So
Yeah,
everybody needs to think through that. Like think through that
yeah.
and
That
what's the plan.
that's so valuable. I mean, I know that starting my journey, I didn't know half of the things that we're talking about right now. I mean, a lot of them do resonate and connect with me because I've spent the time either reading books or listening to my own podcasts or doing my own education. But once again, like we were talking about before, it's not really second nature to most creatives. Let's call them creatives, because I think they start there before they even become an entrepreneur. But with that said, what is something that you maybe advise or can tell somebody starting out or just trying to get into this, I'm trying to just go beyond the creative, or like, where's like a foundational piece that they can create for themselves? Like they say, they didn't buy the other business. They don't have the exit strategies yet, but like, where do I start?
Well, you got to start with who you are as a person, right? What's the products and services that you're going to offer? You got to start with a competitive analysis. You got to start with who the type of clients who the type of people that you resonate with and click with, and that becomes your ideal client. You got to do the ideal client. I do this presentation to figure out your ideal client. It's because you want to work with people that you like and have similar interests and things like that. But you have to do the work. You've got to go to the networking events. You've got to go and shake hands. Say that you are a videographer and you want to get on a venues list, right? Me running venues mean being part of the venue community in a very large way across the country. Everybody wants on a venues list. I constantly get knocks on the door, but ask them, hey, Tom's venue, I'd like to shadow some weddings here to see if we're a good fit. I'll move the tables, I'll move the chairs, I'll clean the toilets. Let's just try, let me help you to see if we're a good fit. I'll take that extra help in my venue all day long, right? And you're connecting with them. You got to put in that type of effort. And then you need to market and advertise. You need to be where the couples are. And we know they're looking for you. They're looking for people in at least at minimum 4, some categories, 6, 7 different places. Are you going to be there? The Knot and WeddingWire get 22 million unique page views every single month. 4 million people sign up every single year. 1,000 downloads on the Knot planning app every single day. So
Wow.
where should you be? You know what I mean? You need to be, it's so much different. Back in 2008, 2007, whenever I started, Wedding Professionals was still advertising in a phone book, right? It's funny because I used to sell phone book advertising. It was the best job I ever had
What?
because you had to be in a phone book. There was
Yeah.
no internet. And you
Yeah.
needed a plumber. You went underneath the phone and found a plumber, right? It was like
Yeah.
the best job I ever had. They all hated the phone book because it was so expensive, right? But back in 2008, 2007, people were still advertising in the phone book. And then the Knot came along and everybody, you advertise in the Knot. But fast forward where we are today, all these years later, my Atlanta, the places that you have to be, right? Like, I'll never ever say you just need to be on the Knot or WeddingWire. You need to be as many places of where your ideal client is looking for you as possible. Period. The end. At my venues that I ran, we had about a $200,000 a year marketing and advertising budget, and we were everywhere. We got a lot of people from overseas. We were advertising overseas. But what we did very well, and what I see wedding pros do well too, is they do monthly, at minimum quarterly, monthly reviews of where they're marketing and advertising. They're looking at their digital footprint. They're looking at the leads coming in. They're looking at the leads to inquiries to bookings. They're doing all that math and making decisions. We had a lot of money. We could, we could do that. I understand that. Most venues don't even spend that much money, but you have to be where the couples are and do the work. Just
Right.
do the work and do the due diligence. It'll happen.
Right.
It'll happen.
I mean,
But it's not easy.
diversification is so important, like you mentioned in the marketing strategy. But I think, and maybe I don't know if you hear this from the people that you're talking to, connecting with out there, is that I think the learning curve maybe isn't as steep as it used to be. And I'll continue with also the dollars spent. Yes, that is a financial investment that you have to have it, but some of the back end stuff, as far as like tracking some of these things or maybe not necessarily having to hire somebody who's going to manage all these things, because you can use AI to help you create some of these spreadsheets, KPIs, and so on and so forth. Have you seen that? And
Yeah, 100%. First off, a good CRM is important.
yes.
And there's not one CRM out there that I know that does everything. But your CRM is, to me, the most important thing to CRM is automations for your nurtures, right?
Yeah.
So I have a venue friend in New Orleans. He runs 17 automations, 17 different automations, right? So he has an automation for weddings and quinceañeras and bar mitzvahs and birthdays when he's booking a tour, blah 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 blah. But those automations also in today's world should include automated text and phone calls. Okay, so and the CRM also, you should be able to pull a report to say, email number 3 went out 150 times last month. It had a 14% open rate and a 3% reply rate. You got to make decisions based on facts in your business. That's another thing that in the world in which we live, in many businesses, not just weddings, but when a business, regardless weddings, make a decision based on a feeling instead of facts, you're wasting your time and you're wasting valuable money resources too. But a CRM is extremely important. I have lots of ideas for that, but
That's
where are we going? So that, I think that's, and maybe when you're first starting out, you don't need a full-blown CRM, but you need something as far as like follow-ups. I don't know how many times you're following up on leads, et cetera, and it's constantly changing. Which worked 6 months ago isn't working anymore, right? You need to be constantly looking at how many leads are coming into two-way conversations to consultations to bookings. Because if you know those numbers and say only 2 out of 10 are going to a two-way conversation, well, do you have a lead problem or a booking problem? You have a booking problem, so let's dig into, well, you might have a lead problem, you're not getting enough leads, but we getting 2 out of 10 is not good, right? Like,
Yeah.
so why is it, what do we have to change? Is it subject line? Is it content because you're not being helpful, building trust and rapport? Is it the fact that this is their inbox and this is their voicemail, their text, and their email, and they send you a lead, okay? And then your response goes at the top of their inbox, but it's getting buried because you're not staying at the top of the inbox. There's a reason why you got to figure out those numbers to make adjustments of what's working and not working. And I think that's probably the biggest pain point wedding pros have, is this ghosting thing, right? It's this ghosting, which is true, but is it the couple's fault or is it your fault?
Yeah.
And 100% of your leads are never going to hit reply. That's an impossibility. But if 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10 are only hitting reply, then you need to make changes, because somewhere along the line, you paid for that lead. Even if it was a referral, you paid for that lead. And if you realize that lead, I'm making a number up, is $38, and you're not staying at the top of the inbox, this is a whole nother podcast. Sorry, President. If you're not staying at the top of that inbox, you can send me a check for $38 every time you're not responding back.
Yeah.
That
cost per lead definitely puts different things in perspective.
But a cost per lead is relative. I know a band up in New York that you spend $110 per lead. I'm thinking, ugh, but he's like, I'm fine with that. He goes, he doesn't care, because he only needs, he's not booking anything for less than $25,000. Right. There's a big difference. There's a big difference there.
Right. Right. So is there like a piece of data that somebody can actually say, once again, we're trying to educate the uneducated in this area, as far as, the business side of the wedding industry, but like, to prove that it's actually a booking problem, right? So it's like all across the board, like, I guess from the first inquiry, you just got to keep tracking that all the way through, or is there like a number that you look at, or like what is the metric?
Do you have a lead? I need to trademark it. Do you have a lead? Is it a lead problem or a booking problem? You need to walk around Wedding NBA with that shirt, right? So most people I talk to, most of them have booking problems, right? Like, they're getting leads from different places. I mean, there's some people that also aren't getting enough leads. So that's a whole nother, you need more leads, right? And is that you're advertising and you're marketing and you're just not getting the right leads. And then we need to look at where and how and when and all that stuff. Looking at a booking problem, there's some key math notes that you need to identify if you have a booking problems. The number one is, what is your lead to booking percentage? So say you wanted to do 100 weddings a year, and you had a 10% lead to booking percentage. Well, that means you need 1,000 leads. Is it even possible to get 1,000 leads in Des Moines, Iowa as a cake baker? I don't know, right? Or you need to massively improve your lead to booking percentage. If you just improve that to 20%, then you only need 500. Okay. The other thing with the lead to booking percent number that's so important to watch is it helps forecast what you're going to do next year, right? So if you don't make any changes, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you what your lead to booking percentage is, but that's a number you should know immediately. If you don't make any changes in your business and the leads keep continuing to flow as they flow, you know what you're going to do next year. And is that the goal that you want, or do you need to improve that? So it helps forecast. So the next number that you need to look at is your leads to two-way conversations, right? Most pros don't look at that number.
Yeah.
And most CRMs don't pull that number. There's a few that do, but most don't. So if you can get it directionally correct, and you look at last month's leads, or maybe the month before, depending how long your funnels are, it's like totally through the funnel.
Right.
And you look at 10 of those leads and only 1 or 2 are actually hitting, or 3 or 4 even are hitting reply. Well, that shows you, okay, that's the first indication that something's wrong, and it becomes a booking issue. The next number is, out of those 2 that hit reply, how many moved into a consultation out of those? Because maybe you're losing them again for some reason. And then consultations to bookings. Most pros will say to me, if I can just get them on the phone, I can book them. I book 9 out of 10 of them, which is great. But the reality of, and my experience shows when I'm doing one-on-ones and we're digging into people's numbers, it is a much lower number than they think.
Yeah.
You know, you're thinking you're getting 8 out of 10, but the reality, it's only like 6 or 5, which is a big difference. So those indicators will show you if you're having a booking problem. And part of the booking, there's so much, that takes us down a path of follow-ups and nurtures and content and cadences and all that. But then that also takes us down a path. Well, let's look at our website call. I just said yesterday to a venue that 2002 called and they want their chair cover photos back. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like your website needs help. Your social media needs help. Little things like, in the world in which we live now, it's so interesting with Gen Z, they're giving their phone number more than any other generation, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have this mental thing where Gen Z doesn't like to talk on the phone. Let me tell you a story. So, number one, on your contact us form, the people I see doing the best, never make the phone number mandatory. You want it, but never make it mandatory. Because think of you yourself, of how many times that you wanted information from something, and you knew if you give a phone number, they're going to call you. I'm not ready for that yet. I just want information. Okay. So instead, have a box that's said preferred method of communication: phone, text, email, in person. Prompt them to give it, but don't make it mandatory. You get a lead in, and the story is, a WeddingPro friend of mine, he tells people, nobody's going to pick up the phone if I call. We were only texting, and they weren't having a great result of texting back. Part of that was content. I said to him, I want you, this is November. I said, I want you to call every single lead that has a phone number in November and get back to me at the percentage that actually picked up. 70% of them picked up, and 48% of, this is a venue, 48% of them went directly to a tour. Then we changed the message that he was leaving, also saying, hey, this is Tom from Tom's Venue. I'm so excited. We are available that date. I'm going to send you a quick text. The text then said, this is Tom from Tom's Venue. I just left you a message. We are available. Looking forward to finding more about your wedding. Please feel free to text me back. The amount of texts that started coming back because we prompted them to text back. It's just like, I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to misquote, but it's like 2.7 or 3.3 times more likely to respond to an inquiry if you end your email with an open-ended question.
Yeah.
Like, identify lead or booking problem, and then look at the facts of your follow-ups, and then make adjustments, and test, ABC test.
Yeah. No, I'm guilty of the not wanting to get on the phone because of the misconception that I would feel that with all the spam likely messages that we get every day on our phones, nobody's going to want to pick up. But I have started to do more of it, calls and text messages. And it's worked in my favor because some people have said, wow, you're the only one who called me. And now I stand out. I'm like, great. you know?
That your testimonial there should be another nugget that is just dropped for everybody, because on the amount of people that I talk to that are doing it are saying the same thing. And remember, if they're giving you their phone number, they're allowing you, they want you to call and text. And imagine if you get a lead and within an hour you call them and up comes the name of Tom's venue. Oh, I just let them lead. I'm going to pick them up. Right. So make sure um that you're on your phone, it says your business. I don't even know how to do that. Like, I had a call with somebody yesterday at 7 o'clock and they weren't calling, and a spam number kept coming in. I didn't pick it up. Well, it was their number. I had an appointment with these people. It was their number, but I wasn't picking it up because it said spam. I don't know how that works, but like, figure that out. But please call and text if you have it. In the perfect world in which I live, and the world where I see pros having the most success in these ever-changing times, you ready for it? It's going to be overwhelming to some of you all, but remember, you paid for that lead. When I get a lead and there's a phone number, I'm calling and texting immediately. I'm sending a personalized email. And then I'm sending, over the next 30 days, I'm sending 6 more emails. And then I am calling and texting at least 4 more times in those 30 days. Then I'm putting them on hold for 10 days, and I have 5 more engaging emails, tips, tricks, and try to re-engage them. Then, depending on the category, I might give up at that point for a wedding, but I paid for that lead and that email address somewhere along the line, and I send a quarterly newsletter or quarterly something out there to say, hey, I do bar mitzvahs, and I do showers, and I do this, and I do this is what's new with me. And to prove this works, it was a DJ in Dallas, and we counseled him about a year and a half ago on the same thing. And he had a massive list of inquiries over the year, email addresses, and he started doing this newsletter thing. Anyway, long story short, one of the brides forwarded his email. She worked at Meta, to the head of events at Meta. And he's now one of the only exclusive DJs that travels the world, his company, for Meta. Wow. Biggest corporate client. Because why? That bride never even replied to him. He never used him as a wedding, but he just was sending out this reminder. So that's just like a really good, it just makes business sense too, right? Like,
Yeah.
But you can't do these things without software automations, AI, and all the other tools that we don't even know about or about to hit us.
Man, I love that. I definitely don't use my list enough. There's something you said, and I don't know if I misunderstood it or didn't hear it properly, that you mentioned that the first response is a manual custom response to the person. Did I hear that correct? Or no?
Well, where they're getting married or wherever. So I'm trying to put something personal in there. I also counsel, I know it's important to get it quickly, but do a little internet stalking and look at their Instagram account and say, I love that yellow umbrella picture with you and your dog, right? Connect. And then it's, below that, it's price ranges from this to this. Couples usually spend this. And then it's bullet points, open-ended question. And then from that point forward, the emails are all templated emails, because there's no way that you have the time to do every single personalized email.
No, yeah, that answers my question, but I guess it made me think of, and you have a lot of experience with this more than me, and probably most of our people listening, is there's this term in the sales, hopefully I'm saying it correctly, seed to lead, right? And so if the now world of automation is not kicking in automatically from that first inquiry, it sounds a little bit manual. Do you feel that can affect, right? Because sometimes a lot of people are planning on the weekends, and wedding pros are out on the weekend. So I get these messages over the weekend, and I might not be able to get back to them.
Excellent point. You should have an automation, an auto reply that says, thank you for your inquiry. We're out planning a wedding. We're out doing a wedding right now. We'll get back to you within 10 hours.
Gotcha.
That's automatic. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. You should have that. Even on the Knot and WeddingWire dashboard, they launched last year that all your leads, you come in, you can set up that automation, that automatic reply, but they also just launched, you can do 10 like a CRM workflow, you can do 10 different emails. But you do the auto reply, then when you get the time, call, text, and email. But during business hours, I always say this, you could be the best wedding planner, florist, cake baker in the world, right? But you have to have sales to be able to bake that, to bake that cake. So during business hours, your day should always be looking at those inquiries coming in, because the first one that gets responded to The quicker you respond to it, the more likely I think it's 50% chance higher that you're going to actually book it.
Right, right. That's like that whole speed to lead concept that I hear, not just from the wedding world. I've actually heard it from other sales
Yeah, absolutely.
strategists, and it seems like just something that's pretty much across the board.
But the calling, right? That's part of that speed to lead thing situation.
Right,
So hopefully
right.
it's that away and you're not like adverse to like you're going to call it. You know what I mean? You're gonna that is your process now. You should have that written down, that process, and follow that process.
Yeah,
Now I'm
no, I love
worried
that.
you're doing this podcast with me and you have leads coming in and nobody's following up.
Tom, I gotta go. I gotta lead. But I mean, I have so many questions for you, but I do want to be respectful of your time. But one question that I did have, based on what you were just talking about, is that with your strategy calls, your one-on-ones, or all these things, there's always this, I guess you could say, concept of, do you provide the pricing? Do you provide the range? Do you do, once again, and this society of, I want the information yesterday, and people are trying to get the transparency thing, right? This maybe Gen Z is looking for some transparency. Are you recommending pricing right away? Are you recommending the range?
Okay. So let's go back to making decisions based on facts and not feelings. So within your first email, if you are providing a PDF that has 7 pages of pricing and, and caterers and venues are terrible at this and multi-ops are terrible at this too, right? And you are receiving 5, 6 out of 10 replies to that. Who am I saying to that is wrong on that first email? But if you do the math, I am a betting man. I would bet that it is not that high, right? We have a tendency to give people information because you think they want it.
Yeah.
So you overwhelm them with information that we all have an attention span a little longer than a goldfish, right? And when you're giving them a 7-page PDF and they're not scrolling through it, and they're like, okay, no, not a fit. Next, you lost them. You
Mm,
also, it's sort of, you want to be able to them to have a question. So when you give them too much information, there's no reason to reply back. So the original question, should you put pricing? Absolutely. Should you give them everything? No.
mm,
Picking on DJs again, as a DJ, what's your price for a Tuesday morning wedding? It's $1,500. What's your price for a New Year's Eve wedding? It's $7,000. My
mm,
price ranges from $1,500 to $7,500. Couples usually spend $3,000.
right.
That couples usually spend is who your ideal client is. And you're bullet pointing the things that you get for that, whatever, that's $3,000, the $7,500 price, whatever that may be. So the original question is, should you put pricing in? Absolutely, yes. It's not as much as a battle as it was a few years ago where wedding pros would say, it's just price shoppers if I put pricing on my website. It's just this or that. Think of how you want to buy products and services. What are the 2 things that you want to know? Pricing, availability, and the third one is reviews.
Yeah.
So yes. So are you putting pricing in your inquiries? What are you doing? How are you when you get an inquiry, where are you talking about pricing?
I've kind of switched. I've done, let's call it the A/B testing, where I've done the no pricing, just kind of like, here's some services I offer. Let me know if you're interested. I've done the range, and lately I've been doing like this is my price type of thing.
Well, it's great you're doing ABC testing, right? And so by November 1st of this year, you should have what is getting the most response. And as you move into engagement and booking season, that's what you're using. And you're not testing anything from that point. So from this point to November 1st, you should be doing that testing, but do the math, right? Like you gotta really like look at that. And if you don't have a decent CRM, you got to
Yeah.
manually look at that, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's time well invested.
Yeah, no, my CRM is okay. It's not the best. It's not the worst. Like you said, they don't all do every little thing. I use one called Honeybook. I'm sure you've heard of it. But it's all sometimes things that you got to do on the side. But with that, I've done also with the Knot or wedding wires of the world, where you kind of leave with the open-ended question like, are you having a ceremony on site or anything like that? And I think you mentioned that. Is that something that you're still
Yeah,
suggesting?
absolutely.
Okay.
Always on all of your communications, you should always have an open-ended question. Always. I can look it up, but it's anywhere from 2.7 to 3.5% more likely to get an inquiry back if you have an open-ended question. The other takeaway with that too is in your contact form, instead of messages or comments, put an open-ended question there, right?
Mm,
Like prompt them. Tell me about your dream day, or what are the top 3 things that you want to see at your event, or something like that. So when you prompt with an open-ended question, you're more likely to get a response.
for sure, for sure.
And a Calendly link. You should have a Calendly link in your inquiries, in your responses too, that says, schedule a 15-minute budget
Discovery
discovery.
call. Yeah. Yeah.
Make fun, have some personality, not a discovery call. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're a wedding planner, style and budget chat. If you're a DJ, music and I don't know, fun chat.
Yeah.
Like play with that.
Okay. I like that. And I mean, I've tried to incorporate that into, I have an automation on my Instagram that automatically replies to people sometimes, trigger words, pricing, whatever, because I found that I was losing messages in my social media as well. And I try to add a little personality to that too. Like, hey, although the robots haven't completely taken over, this does help me manage my DM,
Yeah.
so I add a little something, to get their interest. I right away, like, oh, okay, because that's who I am. So I think that's great that you mentioned adding the personality.
At the venues that I worked at, my 7th email was the subject line was, "Are you okay?" We've sent you many emails, calls, and texts. We're worried about you. 1 of 3 things usually happen. You're tired of planning weddings and you needed a vacation. Where did you go? You booked another venue. Well, that's sad. Sad for us. Who did you book? Or you're binging 90 Days Fiance. What type of popcorn should we send? Microwave or stovetop? And I can literally show you a text from the operations manager that I got last week, and she's back on her way to the post office to send 8 boxes of popcorn.
Wow.
Even if they never used us, because that's customer service,
Yeah.
give me your address. We said that. That historically was one of the most responded emails to. Now, remember, there were 6 emails before in many different contexts. We're building trust and rapport.
Right.
And they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm overwhelmed. I'm on vacation, whatever. So personality is important.
Yes. I love that. People don't do that enough. And now with, once again, using AI to your advantage, now it's also becoming very apparent that some of these are canned AI responses, so to speak, or you're throwing it in ChatGPT or whatever, and it's generating something that doesn't sound or feel like you, but you're still putting it out there because it was quicker.
It's quick and easy. Imagine where we'll be this time next year with all this. It's so scary, exciting, nerve-wracking, all of those things, but imagine where we'll be. But remember, we're all in the relationship business.
Yeah.
When you take the relationship out of it, you're going to struggle. We're in the relationship business. Don't take the human out of your business,
Yeah.
because it's easier. Certainly use the tools.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Use it to your advantage. If, going back to you doing the phone book stuff, you can't be stuck in the yellow pages forever, right? You still got to move with the times. But
Right.
at the same time, you still got to make it yourself and unique. Tom, I want to keep you here forever. This was amazing, but I guess I have to wrap this up. So I'm going to wrap it up with what I call a little rapid fire round, where it's just more of for things that come to mind. It's just some quick things. So I know you've been a part or have had information on a lot of studies and things out there. So what is one detail you think guests always remember most about an event?
The experience that the couple gives them, and that's unique to them, right? Unique to the couple. When asked what was the most important thing when planning your weddings on our real wedding study this year, guest experience, right? So uniqueness, personalization. So one in particular, I mean, every wedding is different. So I don't know what guests are certainly what they're remembering. I was just at a wedding. I don't remember what I ate. I'm not that much of a foodie, but I do remember they had a tattoo station there, and I thought it was a temporary tattoo. So I'm waiting in line for this tattoo, right? And then I realized there's a real needle. I'm like, I got out of line quickly, but I'll always remember that. It was a
Yeah.
real unique experience, right?
Wow.
The
That's a
guest
good one.
experience is everything. So I think it's really important for wedding professionals to know that out there, that when they're communicating with their clients, they should be asking what unique or what guest experience are you thinking of, or giving them ideas of unique guest experiences
Yeah. I
to
like that.
connect with them.
Here's another one. If you weren't an industry expert, what profession do you think you'd be in?
That's easy. I like old people. I think elderly people they were somebody's son, somebody's daughter, they work somewhere. I would love to and I could do this, go to, retirement homes and interview people and create a book of their life.
That sounds really cool. I actually heard of a DJ. I saw it on social media somewhere where that's like he would do that and like just go play at senior homes and stuff like that. And he's saying he gained so much like life knowledge, especially because a lot of these homes, these people just want somebody to talk to or somebody to connect with, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe they don't get visited often enough. And it just changed his whole perspective on life, business, and so many things. So that's a really cool one that you brought that up.
And
I
then but the cover of their book would be their hands.
their hands.
Like, just a picture of their hands,
You really
because
thought this
their
one.
hands, right? Like, you can tell I've thought about this.
Yeah, I'm about to say
I'm
you thought
getting
this one
I'm
through.
getting the chills, right? I
I
got to
love
do it.
that.
I'm running out of time.
That's it. That's it. Get on it, Tom. I'm keeping you distracted with this podcast today.
No, 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 no. I'm running out of time of my life. I got
Yeah.
to do it before I die. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. No, for sure. So the last rapid fire one is the secret ingredient to make this client experience unforgettable, right? You're connecting with a lot of pros and we're talking about, from the first contact to maybe the end. But what do you think is the secret ingredient is in all of that?
Honesty, truth, education, vulnerability,
Oof, yeah.
show who you are. I think that's the secret ingredient, like just connecting with that couple in real ways, even if they never even reply back. You know what I mean? But certainly when they start replying back, you're connecting with that couple. Being the source of truth, like, you can't afford this $300,000 idea. But also being the source of truth and reality, and being the leader, and showing them that what you're paying for is more than just my flowers. You're paying for my expertise and my consulting, being a confidant to you. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's where it is. Gen Z, more than ever, they want to connect, right?
Yeah.
They want to connect at that human level, and they want to do business, and they'll pay more for that
Mm,
too if you show them that. Show the value you bring, not so much about the value and the pricing, but the value you bring as a person and a human.
yeah. I think the term that I hear all the time now is authenticity. And I think that kind of
That's a great term. Yeah.
correlates with all of that you're saying. It's interesting because, and this was supposed to be rapid fire time, but you're good at thought provoking things. It made me think of the authenticity factor being a bit jaded with the social media stuff of the world, because sometimes vendors are giving what they think people want. We kind of briefly touch upon this, and this like this whole brand consistency because they're being transactional. So it's like, I think this is what they want. I'm going to be transactional about it, but then your values and your things are totally different. And now you're not connecting with these couples. Or let's say you do get the booking, you end up being in a situation where you're just like, I can't wait till this thing is over. And I've seen and heard those stories, and I'm like, well, why did you book this client? I get it. You need to pay bills, but now what's the longevity? How long can you do this for?
Right.
So that's a tough one.
I 100% agree. I mean, we're in the right business. We're in a great business. There's no doubt on the business side of it, it's a very good business, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's changing, it's shifting. The people have been getting married for how many thousands of years, and having parties for how many thousands of years, and they need every single one of you. I want to thank everybody, all wedding pros out there too. Like, what wedding pros do matters. You're leaving your family, your friends, you're missing birthday parties and anniversaries and everything else to be the fabric of somebody's most important day of their life. And what you do matters. Remember that. If anybody's listening to this, remember that. Like, thank you for doing what you do, because you make a difference.
I'm going to make a sound bite out of this and just listen into it before I go to my wedding on Saturday. I matter. Last question, Tom. Here at The Right Fit, it's the heart of our show. What makes a business the right fit for the level of coaching and data that you provide?
I think any wedding business would be beneficial for the, for not only the data, but education and consulting, but not just me. There's so much more out there, right? Like there's,
Out of
any business is the right fit to always be learning and improving,
love
and
that.
being able to achieve their goals. I love the fact when they do the work, right? But over the years, I've known people that started out doing this very part-time, and then it went full-time. They were happy with that. And now they're running, like they're running this empire, right? This this empire because I had a tiny bit to do with that. I won't take credit for their success. Well, I'm not, so there's everybody's at their own particular point in their journey, but there's never a point where um, somebody wouldn't receive information and take that information and make it their own. That's going to help them move forward. But you got to do the work.
Got to do the work, and you got to be open to, like you've been mentioning throughout this interview today, the evolution of it all, and not being stuck in something that worked a couple years ago, because that could change. Age ranges have changed. The generation that you're speaking to changes. And look, like you said, it's going to happen again, right? Because that's just the natural progression. So if you plan on being this in a long time, for the long run, you got to be open to adaptability. Tom, super grateful for you and your time here today, for joining us. So much value that not only hopefully our listeners will get, but I honestly got myself.
Good.
Like I said, I feel like I could talk to you forever. So thank you so much for that. Where can people find you? Where are you active? I know you mentioned the email thing that we'll definitely tag on the description, but where else other than that?
Follow WeddingPro, obviously. Shoot me an email. Advertise or don't advertise with us. I'd be happy to do a one-on-one talk with you, see what your goals are, see if I can help. If I can't help you, I will find somebody as smart as you to be able to help them outside of that. I love being able to connect. Any concerns or questions you have out there, please bring them to me, and I will try to address them also. Yeah, just shoot me an email.
Amazing. Thank you for those of you watching or listening here to The Right Fit. And of course, we hope to see you guys next time. Thank you so much, Tom. And we'll check you guys out on the next one.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Great call. Great conversation.